Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, today is a very auspicious night. The Avatar started a very beautiful tradition of singing the glory of Lord uninterrupted for whole night. It's called Akanda Bhajan. And the beauty of this program is that the whole world, or devotees around the world, sing non-stop the glory of the Lord. So there is a time when all around this globe, people are chanting and remembering God with love and gratitude. So we, His children, by His grace, have this opportunity to spend few minutes, few hours in His memory, reminding ourselves of the great blessings and the fortune that He has been bestowing on us. So let us spend these few hours in the memory of the Lord, remembering His teachings and the messages. And let us start this evening with our prayer, and we'll take it forward. Please join me in reciting it. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear brothers and sisters, today we will kind of go back because many people have been writing to me and sharing their thoughts and good wishes about the series that we have done on bhakti, and we will continue that. So today we will look at the whole process till now, whatever we have discussed. And for that, I have the pleasure of introducing another brother who has not come to the program before. So it will be an honor to welcome him. He's brother Hemanth D.V. Let me invite him. Brother Hemanth, Sai Ram, and welcome to this offering his story through the eyes of his boys. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram Abhimanyu brother. Sai Ram to everyone. Loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful program. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to enjoy this.
Welcome. It's a pleasure. Let me give a quick intro about Brother Hemanth to everybody, to all our viewers. Brother Hemanth is one of the very fortunate children who had the privilege of studying through first grade till his master's degree. So he joined in primary school in the first grade in 1988, and then he went on to do his higher secondary school, then graduation from Vrindavan campus, then he returned to Parthi for his master's, then he did his MTech and in computer sciences. So brother has almost stayed there for 19 years, if I'm not wrong. So 19,
That's right, yes.
20 years, Brother Hemanth has been a student, as a portfolio of a student with Bhagwan. And presently, Hemanth is in Phoenix, Arizona, as an USA, as an assistant research professor in Arizona State University. So, Hemanth, welcome once again on this beautiful program, Sai Ram.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Sairam.
Let me start off, Hemant, before we plunge into it, just for introduction for people to know your, little bit of your background as to how you got into this fold. So, give us a little glimpse of your life as to were your devotees, were parents were devotees that they put you in the first grade. How did you land up there, and where are you originally from? I believe you are from Anantapur district itself, right?
Yes, brother. Yes. I'm from Anantapur. In fact, we are from a tiny hamlet called Lepakshi, very close there to,
Oh, that's
to
just a
Puttaparthi.
stone's throw from Puttaparthi.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's quite close, around 60 miles or so, or even less. The strange thing is, people in and around Puttaparthi are sort of insulated from Swami's influence compared to people farther away, say Bangalore or even Delhi or even very far places like Mumbai. Somehow that area, it's insulated um, from Swami's influence, at least in those days, in the 70s and 80s. Nowadays, of course, Swami's work has reached everywhere. And Swami has personally helped the people in that area through water supply project, through the hospitals, and yeah, he is revered everywhere. But in those days, when around 80s, my parents were not devotees of Swami. They were ordinary people who are traditional, who believed in God, who lived a very simple lives, and they wanted me to have a good education. And of course, Swami's school was very well known even then, and so they wanted me to go there, and they put me there. They treated Swami as a saint, like any of the Jagat Gurus, like you have in Kanchi, you have in Sringeri. One of those Jagat Gurus, like that, there is an ashram there. Swami is like a guru, and that was what my father told me when he went there. Swami is like a guru for you, and so that was the understanding I came with to Puttaparthi. And of course, I was just 6 years old. Not a, I didn't have much understanding of life. I didn't know what I was even getting into. Of course, I only missed my home and parents. But that was in '88 we joined. There were still sands in there was no Kulwant Hall. There were sands there. I remember there, and we would come every day for darshan. We'd play in the sands, watch Swami come and give darshan, and I would often wonder, okay, who's staying with Swami inside in the mandir? Swami is there, his family is there, perhaps his children are there. They would tell we are, yeah, they would tell us we are Swami's children, and it didn't sort of really um, sit well with me. I thought, no, what about my parents? If Swami is going to take me up as his child, adopt me, what's going to happen to my parents? That was the fear that was lingering. It was always there. Whenever I heard you are Swami's child, you are all Swami's children, I didn't like it actually, and so that was my first experience of coming to Puttaparthi, coming to Swami's school. But my very first interaction with Swami was uh, in the mandir, and Swami had called all of us. They had taken our measurements for stitching clothes. So they wanted to. I didn't know they were taking measurements for clothes, but they had taken our measurements in the school, and so we had come for darshan, and Swami had got new clothes stitched for us. And so these were not whites, but our school dress, the blue
Oh,
top
it was
and
a
the navy.
uniform. It was a
Yes,
school
it was the
uniform.
uniform, school
Okay.
uniform, the navy
Okay.
blue knickers. Swami had stitched those, and we were all sitting next to the interview room door, and Swami was standing where the birthday boys used to sit then, right opposite the interview room. And there was, I think, warden auntie and headmistress auntie, and they were calling out names, and Swami would give the clothes. I think most of us are not interacted with Swami. We knew nothing about Swami. So I was observing students, children would just get up when the name was called, take the clothes from Swami and walk back. That's it. There was no one was touching Swami's feet. it was maybe one or two who knew Swami, who came from families that were already devotees. Um, at home, we had the practice of whenever we get new clothes, we would always take it to the altar, and we had to put some turmeric on it, then offer it the to the picture there, to God, and say a prayer, and then give it to the elders. The elders will give it to us again, and then we can wear it. So
Oh, that
even
is
if
your
it is,
tradition.
that's
That
the
is your
tradition at
tradition.
home.
Okay.
Whatever it is, even if it's a handkerchief, literally, I have seen, whether it's undergarments, whether it's handkerchief, or whether it is like very new clothes, whatever it is, it has to first have some turmeric on it and go to the altar. So I was wondering what is going to happen here, because I'm getting new clothes. And so I went to Swami, and my name was called, and I took the clothes from Swami, and then I was just standing there, hesitant. I didn't know what to do because there was no altar there. And then Swami said, Pettu, he said. And then I put it at Swami's feet. I instantly, it occurred to me, yes, I can put it here itself. So I put it at Swami's feet, and then he bent down and he blessed me. I had not seen any other children do it before me. I was one of the earlier roll numbers. But then after that, of course, other students started doing the same thing. But that was my very first experience. I felt an
Hemant,
instant
let
connection.
me tell the people that word you used, pettu, means keep.
That's right. Yes.
So that's an interesting point to note for the people who are watching it, is that he gives you the robe, he gives you the cloth, and he does not expect you to just take namaskar. He's asking you to keep it,
Yeah.
and that is a very subtle indicator of his, divinity, that he tells you, okay, keep it because you have it in mind.
Yeah.
He
Usually when he
uses the
says
word
take,
pettu,
yeah. When he says when he's giving namaskar, he'll say tisko. Usually,
pisco.
tisko
He
means
said
take the
take.
namaskar.
He said
But
take,
this one
but
was
not keep.
pettu. Yeah, he said pettu very clearly. It was. I mean, at that moment I realized, okay, this there is something happening here, even to my small mind then, which couldn't really comprehend. You had that instant connection. Okay, this is the same deity that we pray to, that same Venkateshwara we pray to at home, who is now sort of accepting what I'm offering here. And so that was a very beautiful experience for me as a child. I felt very happy to get those clothes. It felt that my parents were giving me those clothes, and so that was my very first connection or introduction to Swami. This was maybe in the first few weeks that of sometime
But
in June.
Hemant, since you were not from a devotee's family, so obviously you didn't have any pre-conceived, stories, or a kind of a programmed mind that what you're supposed to be doing there. You had only the feedback of teachers, how they were guiding you, you were following it. And usually people have this kind of an either an awe for Swami or a craving to go close to him. How do you look back? How was your attitude?
I think that's a good segue to what I was thinking about too. Like I said, they would tell us, the teachers would tell us, you are all Swami's children, you are divine. Swami is like your mother and father. You have parents at home, you have left them and you have come here. Swami is now taking care of you, and he's your mother and father. As I mentioned earlier, I never liked it in the beginning. I couldn't accept it. I was
You couldn't
wondering that.
reconcile with that truth, huh?
Absolutely. I was thinking I'm abandoning my parents and taking on this. But over time, starting with primary school, in fact, I gained more love and respect for my parents having stayed at Puttaparthi, because they would infuse in us. Swami would say, I don't want anything else from you. I want you to keep your parents happy, get a good name uh, for Swami's college, and keep your parents happy. Get a good name for Swami. This was always his message, and over time, I gained more love and more respect for my parents. And I think that was having stayed with Swami and see how he treats his parents, the parents of the physical body, and how he expected the students to treat their parents. Anyway, coming to my interaction in on this topic, my understanding about how Swami became that parent. Um, it was, I think, in primary school. sometime in my first grade, in fact, or first or second grade, we were seated in the Bhajan hall in the school, and the teacher was telling, Swami is like your parent, Swami is like your mother and father. I was still grappling with that idea. Then suddenly, one of my classmates, I think it was Vimala ma'am, who was explaining this to us. One of my classmates, if I remember right, was Giridhar. He immediately got up. He went, and there was Swami's altar there in the Bhajan hall, prayer hall. The Swami's chair in the middle. He went right on and sat right on Swami's chair. And we were all aghast. We were all children, and we started jumping and making noise. Ma'am, look what he's doing! Look what he's doing! And he sat there like Swami. Then he picked up Swami's handkerchief, wiped his mouth, and he sat there. Everyone was like shocked. There was no one else. It was just our classroom and the teacher. So the teacher immediately like, what is happening here? She ran and picked him up. She didn't get upset with him. She just picked him up, put him. I remember she put him on her side, like how mothers carry children on her waist, and then she put Swami's handkerchief back on the chair and asked him, "Why did you go and sit there? That is Swami's chair. You're not supposed to do such mischief." And very innocently, he said, Ma'am, all this while you're telling Swami is my mother and father. And if your Swami is my mother and father, all that I'm doing is I'm just going and sitting on Swami's lap. I'm sitting on my mother's lap. What is wrong with that?
So sweet.
That was an eye opener. Swami talks through like so many people around us. Swami communicates his message to us through these people, and this incident was like a very formative incident in my early childhood, and that incident stayed on with me, and it still stays with me. And I often go back to that and realize how Swami has been that mother and father, has been that guardian who has looked after physically, and in fact, like there have been many incidents like whenever a minor, say like chicken pox or something broke out, all the children would get chicken pox in the school. If it was conjunctivitis, because we are all staying quite close, all the children would get conjunctivitis. And so Swami would personally come to the school, materialize vibhuti, put it in a bucket of water, and say, "Give it to all the children." And then he would walk. We would all be lying down in beds, and we would be sick, and he would just gently walk, and we would, if we can, we will sit up on our beds. But Swami will say, "No, lie down." He would go all around. Whenever any child is sick, Swami would know in the mother. There was one of my classmates, I think it was Satya James. Um, he was sliding down the stairs. The stairs, on the sides of the stairs, we have this uh, the support. We would, for fun, we would just sit on that and slide down.
And slide down.
Yeah, and he flipped and he fell on
Oh
the
my.
other side. It was a drop, I think, more than 5-6 feet, and he hurt his back and his head, and there was bleeding from the ear. Swami came to know there in the mandir, and the headmistress auntie was there in the mandir, and Swami said, "Go, there's a boy who's got sick, he needs attention." Swami sent vibhuti from there. So like these very small incidents, but he was always there as a parent, always there as a guide. uh, I remember another incident from primary school. um, Swami sent fans for the school, and there were no fans in the hostel when I joined in the primary school, and Swami sent fans, and these were huge fans. They had a very huge center and three huge wings, and these were ceiling fans, and they put ceiling fans for all of us. And we were very happy. So now we have fans, and we can sleep comfortably. One night we were sleeping, and we got up in the morning, and we find the fan is there right in between the beds. It's just impossible how a rotating fan could have fallen in between the beds without hurting any child. We were all sleeping so close. The fan settles right in between the heads of children, with one wing on one side in bit. Like it couldn't have fallen there unless it was placed very carefully. So this was a fan that was rotating, and it slipped, and Swami's grace. And then I think the teachers took it up to Swami, and Swami said, "Be careful, make sure they're all tightened properly." And this was Swami's hand, always there, always guiding, always protecting. But over time, I think I have transitioned from Swami as a parent to Swami as a guru, and that is how I relate to him now. And he's the guide, he's the
Hemant,
guardian, and the
I
guru.
know it's a fantastic. Let me ask you a very simple, and then we'll invite others. When you say that teachers help us to understand and connect with Bhagwan, and they say that you are you are Swami's child, you are Bhagwan's children. Uh, it's a very big concept for a small child, as you have explained. You're grappling with that. What do you think is the intent? And today, when you look back, do you agree with that the format of doing things?
Yes, I think it's for a child. I think it's very important. There is that someone they can relate to, and parent is the closest thing to relate to for a child, or the most intimate object. And so, like the mother is the god, father is the god, and so Swami takes on that role. So it's very important for children to relate to Swami as a parent, as a mother, as a father, and later on he can become as a guru, and then a friend, or whatever be your relationship with Swami. And I have seen how this relationship blossoms
Evolve.
for every individual. It's going to be very different for the individual based on what they need and what Swami wants them to experience in life. But I think for children, it always starts off with Swami as a mother and
I
father.
like it because usually we think that we should introduce God as a friend to the children. But here you're given a very beautiful insight that how in the primary school they start off with introducing God as a parent.
Yes,
And when I look back and look at the life as a journey, when we start relating to the final truth that I'm God, there the transition is never as a friend. It is always like Jesus said, I am the
yes,
Son of God,
yes,
and then I am one with God. So the transition again at the finale comes from father and son relationship, kind of,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. It comes back to a circle. Yes,
comes back to the circle. So it's very interesting what you have pointed out, that how in primary school they start off with the same thought, which actually you may not comprehend it that way, but then the journey again revolves and again you get back the same relationship. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely. Yeah.
Hemant, as we move forward, let me have the pleasure of introducing our other brothers. So uh, let me, because it will be nice to have them together and we can share. So let me welcome brother Jagdish Chandra. Sairam, brother Jagdish.
Sairam, my brother. Thanks for having me here once again. Sairam, Hemant.
Salam
Pleasure.
Jagdish. Nice to see you.
Same here.
Let me give a quick reminder introduction of Jagdish. I'm sure people who have watched our program, they know you already, but still, brother Jagdish also has spent around 10 years as a student with Bhagwan. He joined in high secondary school and then
So,
went on to do his
sorry, joined in
master.
Brindavan,
Vrindavan campus,
bachelor's.
sorry,
Bachelor's.
Vrindavan campus in Whitefield campus, and graduation, and then went on to do his BSc there, and then he did his masters and PhD. He finished in 2010, and then he had a chance also to teach in Prashantan Nilayam. So he had a 1 year of teaching stint, and then presently, brother Jagdish is in Germany. He's joining us from Germany. He's a senior innovation manager, corporate research and technology at Carl Zeiss. So, brother Jagdish, thank you very much for accepting this invitation, and
Thank-
lovely to have you again.
Pleasure is all mine. I'll just add one line, brother.
Yes, please.
Probably most of the people don't know that Hemant, me, and Ranganath are from the same batch. We both
Yes.
are, all three of us are batchmates.
Excellent, excellent. So you must be having, okay, so I'm giving you an opportunity to remind your old days. So when he's narrating the
Absolutely.
stories, I'm sure it must be triggering good memories for all of you.
Absolutely.
So let me
Absolutely.
invite Ranga also, so it'll be nice. So, Brother Rangaraju, welcome. Sai
Saram,
Ram.
Saram Devi,
Sairam
Saram.
Raju, nice to
Sir,
see you.
same here.
Let me quickly give a short intro of Brother Ranga also. Brother Ranga has also spent around, he joined in 11th grade and went on to do his graduation and post graduation. He spent around 7 years as a student, and presently he is a director in Sanatan Analytics. He's an independent entrepreneur, if I may say so, from a small town called Belampalli, but doing a big work. So, welcome, Ranganath Raju. Thank you very much.
Saram, brother.
So you must be hearing our brother Hemanth sharing the old memories of his school days, and it is so sweet to hear your, first year, first standard experiences, I should say. And I didn't feel like stopping him, but I wanted to make you join this journey of stories. Maybe whatever he's saying, it will trigger some memories in your mind also.
In fact, in my 11th, when I joined school. I remember Hemanth and there was one more of his classmate, Jays Naresh. They were behind me in the lunch line, and they were serving us paneer curry. And I was so excited because I'm a foodie. I was kind of telling in Telugu that these two people are also of Telugu language. So I was exclaiming to myself that these paneer pieces look very big. I've never seen such pieces in Belabel. And immediately I remember Hemant and Naresh commenting to each other that, oh, these are nothing compared to what we used to get in primary school. And that was in fact my first introduction of what primary school is. It sounded like a food heaven for me. And I used to always wonder what would they teach to those boys. I had that desire, deep desire to listen to those classes. Sometimes uh, these boys who studied from first to 10th, they would just let out those small incidents where the Swami would have come to their classes, or Swami would have given cups to them, Swami would have given chocolates to them, and how the teachers would have prompted them to speak. I used to always wonder what would those teachers be teaching. And now when my son he's in sixth class in primary school, because of online classes, I get to hear those classes along with him, and I really marvel the way in which these values, the love for Swami is driven to their into their hearts and minds. It's beautiful. It's a penance that the teachers of Patti are doing.
Beautiful. Actually, when he was mentioning about, watching Swami and how Bhagwan is introduced to children at that age, and that really caught my attention. And that is because such a, very, how has he explains that introducing child as a parent, God as a parent, is the closest relationship association a child can relate to at that age, because at that age even the friend concept is fresh for them, but parent concept is still on for them, so they can relate to it. So it's a very fantastic thing that how at that school, primary school, that concept of God is introduced as a friend, as a parent, and Bhagwan plays that role to the perfection. So that is beautiful. So
Just to add on here,
yes, brother.
if you look at the evolution of the human soul, or rather the evolution of a soul, not human soul, the evolution of a soul, 84 crore species. That is how the minimum, that is probably the bare minimum that one has to travel to be in a position where one can actually, at an intellectual level, probably conceptualize what God is. It's a dog or a donkey or a monkey and an insect will have no way to understand the meaning of the term God, but it's probably the fag end of those 84 crore species that one gets a chance. And just imagine what a daunting task for Swami it is. You are basically heavily weighed down by the burden of the 84 crore species memories that you are carrying, and suddenly he has to give you a crash course in spirituality. I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm your guru, I'm your guide, now run. So literally that he has to set us on a crash course, and that's wonderful. Listening to Hemanth's story, we always used to sit around him with awe. He's an amazing orator and a gem of a person. And many a times we needed no other external entity for satsang. We would sit around somebody like Hemant, somebody like Ranganath, somebody like Arvind, and we would drink Swami, what it meant. And sometimes we used to forget what we actually came to discuss. and we would just be lost in these stories. So it's fantastic. Thank you, Hemant.
Okay, let me bring you back to the topic from the same thought process. You know, you have been observing Bhagwan, like Hemant, of course, from the Great One, but that time it was a very default observation, which I'm sure later on must have become conscious analysis of what he's observing. But having said that, you all have that privilege of watching an avatar in action. And when we talk about the concept of bhukti, and you see avatar, what do you think is the role of avatar in this concept of bhukti? How has he influenced it, or how has he played a role in our? Because I don't know whether bhukti can be related to Bhagwan, because he does not he does not really satiate any desire of his. There is nothing like satiation for him, uh, but it is for us. But he does play a role. How do you look at it? I'll keep the floor open. Hemant, you may want to start off, and other brothers can join in.
Absolutely. So I think I would beg to differ on that. When you say Swami doesn't satiate his
Okay.
desires, let me explain it. I think I have seen Swami being satiated.
Okay.
This is, say, after Akanda Bhajan, especially. And then after the Akanda Bhajan, we are all seated there. The Bhajan is over, and they distribute prasadam. Everyone is having prasadam in their place. There is that tamarind rice and pongal. And then Swami says, start, and then everyone chants the Brahmarpam. You can see it echoing. And then Swami is smiling there, and then the children, especially the primary school children, and even the school children, they start to eat, and you can see Swami relishing it through their partaking. We have seen God, and when we say Sarvata Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukham, this is a literal example of Swami eating through us when we say that Brahmarpanam. And so, coming to your question on bhukti and the purpose of an avatar, there is the ultimate purpose where Swami says, Janulapai Priti Vatsalya Paratatoda, out of great or intense love for mankind, I come down with divinity in a human form. So there is a play of the divine and the human. That is the ultimate goal, and that is given. But there are some side effects to it, and one of that is being able to experience him as humans, being able to see how he goes about daily life and how he sets an example. I think when we observe Swami going about his daily life, how he carries himself, how he grooms himself, how he takes care, and how he interacts with people, all of these things are examples for us to emulate. We look at it, we are impressed by it, we observe him, and I think then we slowly begin to adore and imitate, and then possibly we can emulate what he's doing. And so I think one of these other purposes of God coming down is also to set an example, to lead normal daily life. There is no aspect of divinity involved here. There is need for divinity, but in this case, just a simple one-to-one experience where we see Swami and learn to lead our lives like how he's carrying himself. I think that's one of the purposes.
So you gave a very beautiful, another dimension to the whole concept of why avatar comes. Because when you talk to anybody, they'll give you immediately that shloka from Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya. So everybody goes into that mode that for the upliftment of dharma, avatar takes. And here you brought in a very beautiful, comparison that he does. That happens, but what he does with us is he creates a beautiful example for all of us to emulate. Jagdish, your input. Ranga, please feel free. Join us.
Sure. I will just add on. In fact, Hemant has very beautifully summarized it and given an aspect of that. I believe at some point in time, a devotee asked Swami, why do you incarnate? There is no one answer. Many people have asked this question many times because we never seem to get a hang of that. We never can intuitively understand what it means. We can only speculate. Probably first, let me give the conversation or cite the conversation during the Bhagavatam between Parikshit and Sukha Maharishi. And when in the whole Bhagavatam story, when the discussion was that Rama Avatar, Parikshit very innocently asks Shuka. So Rama Avatar basically came down to take care of Ravana, or basically kill Ravana. And then Sukha is struggling to give an answer. He said, no. That had happened incidentally. Means like he coming down just for the sake of annihilating Ravana. It's like, you get a bazooka to swat a fly. Means you don't need it. It's an overkill. It's too much. You just don't need it. He said he came for a lot of things. He came for Sabri. He came for Bhil. He came for Hanuman. He came for Vibhishana. He came for that squirrel. And in the process, there was also Ravana, and that happened. So he comes down for multiple things. And most importantly, when this devotee asked Swami in the interview room, there's an interesting answer that Swami gave. He's asked Swami, why do you incarnate? And Swami's answer was, I come down to taste the yearning of the devotee, because that is something I cannot experience without taking a human form. That is the only thing that I get to experience that yearning. And that is a beautiful way, the upliftment of the consciousness, putting that devotion in them in some form, making them think, making them pine for him, and the process continues. So those are my 2 cents.
Beautiful statement. Beautiful statement. Raju.
Yes, brother. Just to add to what Jagdish was mentioning, and taking cue from Hemanth's mention of avatar, in the same Bhagavatam, when Putana translated into Telugu, there's an extra line that Putana adds in. He talks about Parikshit in the same flow. He goes on to ask Shuka that has God incarnate only 10 times? Is it only 10 times that yes? I mean, that was then 8 or 7 or 8 times. Is it only up to Krishna that did he come in a human form? And Shuka tells him that no, he came in 42 forms. And he says, 42? What do those 42 stand for? Can you explain? In the Telugu poem, he gives a list of those names. Apparently, they kind of talk about a particular life, but however, each of those names have a very deep meaning. And at the end, Shuka adds on to say, rather, Potana through Shuka adds on to say that these lives have come to show man how to lead a life of love, purity, and compassion. And just to take a cue from what Hemanth has mentioned, and from what you said about dharma being the sole objective, one of the brothers who was staying with Swami in the residence, he had narrated one beautiful incident in which they were trying to open a door from the other side, and Swami puts his index finger on the door, and they struggled to push the door open from the other side. They had to literally 2, 3 of them had to push it. Swami was just holding that door with that index finger, and later this brother takes the liberty to ask Swami, is it because of your divinity that you are able to hold the door? And Swami immediately says, no, it is not. It is the purity. If each of you continue to be this pure every minute of your existence, you also can do this. And if you go back to any instances of the avatar, if you look at the entire life of Swami, he started from a hamlet which was just what 1,100 population, 100 or 110 population. He had no financial means. No, he had no parents of influence. He had no friends of great influence, and yet from there, today Satyasai Akanda Bhajan is held in 110 countries, and I hear that people are the slots are not enough for all the samtis to be given for a chance to sing. That is the amount of influence that this avatar has extended. How did it happen? And every discourse, Swami ends up with this message that you are God, and he says, "My message is love." And I remember in one of the discourses, Swami very clearly says that it is the power of love that can transform earth into heaven and heaven into earth. And I have come to show that power of love to each one of you. Look at all those people I know. Just the building next to this building where I'm sitting is a school, is an old school where they used to hang the Naxalites upside down in 90s, and they used to the police used to interrogate them here. And there was one Naxal who was a hardened, uh, who was a hardened, what do I say, communist who wanted to take revenge on the system, and he went to great extent to cause damage to many families in that outrage. This person comes for some reason, he ends up coming to Shanti Nilayam. He sits somewhere far in the darshan. Swami is coming out for darshan, and from there Swami just looks at him and smiles. And there's an old man who is trying to take Pada Namaskar. Swami stops for a minute, allows the old man to take Pada Namaskar, blesses him, and walks away. That's the only darshan that this person had, but that somehow melted his heart. And today he goes around many of the samitis talking about greatness of devotion, the power of love. And when I asked him, how did this happen? He says that I do not know what happened, but all those people who are sitting around, there is something different with them. That Baba, when he came there, it was like a 1,000 watt bulb hitting me. And I was already full with the love of those people all around. And that is when I started realizing that no, that Swami, I remember one of the very leading industrialists asked Swami that Swami, how does transformation you tend to see happen in this world? How you intend to bring it? Swami did not answer it immediately, but Swami went on to explain, and he said, "See, if you want to create a wave, if you want to create a wave, what would you do? You would churn the ocean. That's one way. Other way is you would create ripples across different points, and each ripple would and continuously create those ripples. Ripple would join, and those ripples would in turn become a massive wave. And you look at those small ripples. For example, these four people sitting here, we span across what 40, 50 years, and yet we are so bonded like a family. uh, and look at all those samitis, look at all those countries who are united in the power of love. I think that magic is brought about by this avatar through sheer love and hard work.
It is really more and more we think about that, you get overwhelmed with emotions that what Avatar really comes to do and what he does. Because we can theorize or put him in one bracket, which normally the commentators would try to do. But here, since you have witnessed him, so you realize that the facets of this avatar are so vast that even to tabulate those facets is sometimes impossible. Now, forget about filling the blanks, like
Yeah.
in each facet, what happens there. So let us look at it this way. So, we talked about the bhakti point of view. So let me bring the discussion back on that topic. So how do you look at Avatar? Like you said, he's a role model. He played that part very well. What attitude, if I may ask, of an avatar, or what all attributes? I don't know how to phrase this also. As an avatar, he has helped us that when we look at him, we understand this is how we are supposed to conduct in our life. So can you maybe highlight one or two, whatever you feel like, and then give some examples of what do you understand by those facets?
So, like we were discussing how he comes to set an example. I think if you look at Swami's life, the way he carried himself, and this is available to everyone. It's not someone who has had a personal interaction with Swami. Just observe Swami. You can see how he is setting an example, just the way he carries himself. I have seen Swami physically for 20 years or so, not once have I seen him unkempt or ungroomed. He's always picture perfect anytime you observe him. So whenever he is in public, well groomed, you observe his nails, very neatly cut, very nicely trimmed. There's not a hair out of place. The robe is never crumpled. Never. He's always picture perfect. You wonder why.
Twice he shaves twice.
Absolutely clean shaven. Never have I seen an indication of stubble on Swami's face even. No, you wonder. So, what's the need for all this? Why does Swami, like, is Swami so much interested in taking care of his body? Yes, it is. Swami wants to appear perfect all the time, and there's a reason for that. It is not because he is so enamored by his own body, not because he wants to look good in pictures. No, those are all not the reason. I think he's showing us how we need to take care of this body. You know, we are all custodians of this body. We are not owners of this body. Is the message there? And this body is, I think, Swami says, is an instrument. Deho devalaya prokto. So this is the temple of God. And how should this temple be kept? Jivo deva sanatana. There's the indweller, which is the deity which is there inside. And we need to remove the ignorance, uh, which is like the used flowers that are used for worship, and worship it with the feeling of soham. That's the entire sloka. But how do you take care of this temple? You need to take care of it. You need to feed it well. You need to exercise. You need to stay healthy, and you need to carry yourself. I remember in one discourse, Swami was saying, this looked very exaggerated, but he said, I get up before going to bed, I brush once. Then I get up after a couple of hours, again I brush once more. Again at 2 o'clock, I brush. Again at 5 o'clock in the morning, I brush. It felt like Swami was brushing 6 to 7 times. But I think the message there was, you need to take care of your body. And that is because you need to put it to use. And it should not be a hindrance for you. It should be a tool that you can use. If I have rusted implements, if I have rusted tools, how can I sort of uh, do seva? How can I put this body for paropakarartham idam shariram? Swami says this body is for serving others. If you're not taking care of it, how are you going to use it to serve others? I think that was a very important message. It's, you have to take care of this body not because you love this body, but because you want to use it for service to others.
I'm speechless. I'm enjoying actually your narration about Bhagwan. You know, uh, Hemant, I would like you also to give us a little flavor of his detachment to the body, because whatever you have illustrated is shows kind of attention to the body,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know. So it can be interpreted as you said. No, it was not. That is your experience with him, that he says he was not doing that for the sake that he's so enamored by his body, but it shows attention. So can you
Yes.
give us some illustration, all of you, any one of you, that
Yeah.
shows that he was still at the same time detached from his body?
Absolutely detached. Like if you see the last 15, 20 years of Swami's life, when he had a fall, there was had a fracture on his hip. As students, we would see Swami come in the wheelchair sometimes. You could see his legs are swollen, and there's going to be pain there. It's such a contrast. You're watching Swami's feet, you see them swollen, you expect there's going to be pain as you travel up to see his face, and you see a beaming, smiling face. It is like, whose feet are these, whose face is that? That was the sort of dichotomy there. How is it possible that someone is smiling such a radiant smile, so fresh, and whose feet are so much swollen? He's hobbling. He's having two people to help him. He's unable to take a step forward physically. But then you see his smile. There's not even a twitch of pain. There's absolutely a radiant smile. You can know there's pain inside, but it doesn't show up on the face. I think it was Sudhir Bhaskar sir who narrated this experience once. In those days, Swami would give Pad Namaskar to Seva Dal after their Seva. So they would do a month-long Seva in Puttaparthi, and at the end of this, they would all be seated in the mandir, and Swami would come and go in between them and give Namaskar. And these people have left their homes, come here, done Seva for a month, and they're looking forward to this experience, and they want to take back something from that to their homes. So they would be giving letters to Swami, vibhuti packets. They would put things on Swami's path. They would spread handkerchief. They would put a baby there so that Swami's feet would brush the child, like that. Especially on the ladies' side, when they would be sitting, Swami would go, and this would be Swami would give for a very long time, lots of seva. And when these lady devotees unknowingly would rush to grab Swami's feet, they would be wearing glass bangles. And those bangles would sometimes break on Swami's feet. Unmindful Swami would be. He would go, and then at the end of it all, you would see Swami's feet have been. You can see scratches there. Sometimes you can see blood there. Then they would say, "Swami, your feet are bleeding." So their joy is more. They have done seva for one full month, giving up all their needs. This is what I can do to make them happy. So when you say Swami take your body, it is for this. It is for this. There is a detachment there. It's not attachment to the body. The attachment to the spirit always, but the body is a tool, must be used well.
Floor is open. Jump in.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'll just try to do justice to the discussion. If you try and see the lives of avatars, try to compare in some sense, take it Rama, Krishna, or Swami. One thing that stands out is the industriousness. Karma Yoga, it literally blares on your face. The way they dedicate themselves to duty. Take, for instance, Swami, that Ranganath just mentioned, a Hamlet. As Kasturi Garu very beautifully puts it, a stone's throw from Stone Age. That was what Puttaparthi was. He didn't inherit any name, fame, or wealth. It was just intense, back-breaking work. Means even now we see those calendars in which Swami is bending down and serving Pongal for Narayan Seva. What was Swami's age in that photo? Can we imagine a 60-year-old person? He was a senior citizen by the time when that photograph was taken. He was bending down and he went lines after lines. This is something that misses us. We sort of take it for granted. In fact, when I was a kid in Balvikas, I always thought that since Swami is God, he doesn't have to shave. Probably it's just taken care of. The divine will take care of it. But exactly, and it's done. But when you became a student, you got to know, no, he tirelessly did that day in and day out, every day, every session, without fail. Whether he had fever, whether his hip was broken, he just did it relentlessly. And so you take the example of Rama. He didn't command, okay, I'm sitting in the forest, I can command for my dad's army to come and rescue Sita. Dasharatha's army was the most, feared army in the whole Bharatvarsha at that point in time, or the vassal kings in whose forests he was roaming around. No, he just took the monkeys, the bears. He managed, he put in hard work, he sort of probably trained and coached them, and then he won it through them. Never in their lives, and even now if you see, Navami and Ashtami are considered to be sort of fraught with obstacles. They are not very good days as per as Indian astrology is concerned. Ashtami and Navami, they say don't start anything on Ashtami and Navami. And guess what? When was Rama born? Rama Navami. When was Krishna born? Krishna Ashtami. They basically took on that the most horrific amount of physical strain on themselves, and then just showed those days which are considered to be a friction in the Indian astrology, how an avatar took over himself, and then he showed how to conduct himself, how to lead that path, and what amount of physical strain. I'm sure we all can correlate, or we all can relate to the fact n number of times. If there was a cut or something or some stitches, and then a doctor would probably come to Swami or somebody, they would force Swami literally, And Swami said, this is your body, you do whatever you want with it. He wouldn't even go through anesthesia. Never. Can you even humanly think of it? Well, I struggle with Dettol. When there is a cut and I need to put a bit of a Dettol, I'll be jumping up and down. Just think, he tells this is your body, do whatever you want. And he would be reading the newspaper, or he would be reading some magazine or some. He is unmindful. That kind of purity that Ranganath was talking about, that comes just by adherence to Karma Yoga. Forget, we are not even talking about the divine aspect. We're talking about just blatant, put your head down, bend it down, and just work, just toil. What kind of strength does it bestow? Have we even ventured into that aspect of Karma Yoga, which is actually modus operandi? The avatar's modus operandi is Karma Yoga. That's what he chooses. And that's breathtaking. You just can't comprehend sometimes what it is.
I always felt, the avatar is the perfect form of a human being, not of divine that way. So whatever avatar does is actually what a human being is supposed to be doing, or is capable of doing.
Capable of doing. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that thought has always been in my, I've been going on about it, and I used to always, believe in that thought, but the comprehension was, and today when you're discussing, I'm getting that thought more and more clearer, if I may say that,
And I'll just add one on. Sorry, Raju, I'll just add on and then I'll hand it over to you. Just what DV was mentioning. And this is one of the most beautiful phrases of the Ishavasya Upanishad that Swami liked a lot. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita. You take care of this body as if you are going to live for 1,000 years. But the way to enjoy it is through detachment. Means you work as if, means you can enjoy this only, you're not attached at all. You work, means somebody very beautifully said, pray like a fanatic but work like an atheist. And so when you pray as if your prayers are going to take you across. But when you get down to work, you work like an atheist. It does not matter. And that detachment, the absolute upkeep of the body, the perfect way to do everything, and yet you're just not attached. You're just completely detached. That's the one point. And over to you, Raju.
That verse is very beautiful. Ishavas says that verse is amazing verse. More and more you think about it, it just takes you in a different trip altogether. Sorry, Raju, please.
Yes. So just to add to what Hemant and Jagdish were mentioning, after our Chennai speech, so Swami had taken us for Atrudra Mahayajnam, and Jagdish was speaking in Hindi and I was in Telugu. So after our speeches, we would get to walk behind Swami. So till Swami gets into the car, Swami would Swami wanted to literally show off that these are my kids who spoke. So I had finished my speech that day, and Swami was apparently quite happy. So I was walking next to Swami's chair, and Swami was being wheeled out, and I was I was seeing line of 15 to 16 uh, devotees, senior devotees, standing there, and I was prepping up myself that Swami would introduce me as a very good poet, as a great speaker, and then I would try to appear humble. I was thinking, should I fold my hands or should I say it is Swami's grace? All the thoughts were running in my head, and as we approached the first person, it was apparent on Swami. I was seeing it. I was getting ready, and Swami was just about to open his lips. And that devotee bends down and says, Swami, my daughter-in-law is not feeling well. Please give vibhuti. Swami smiles, Swami blesses, Swami gives vibhuti. Swami says, I'm so grateful, Swami. And that senior devotee gets up, the wheelchair passes, and Swami again is about to introduce the speaker, and that person bends down and says, Swami, my son and daughter-in-law have come from US. They would like to have Pada Namaskar. Please allow them. Swami, call them. And then they take Pada Namaskar, and it goes on. By the time we reached 11th or 12th person, I was so dejected. I felt, oh my God, what are these people doing? What is happening? I'm not being noticed. They're not even taking care of Swami's apparent need. They're not allowing Swami to speak. But 16th person continued those prayers to Swami. Swami is unmindful. Swami is very happy. And as Swami reached the door, one of the senior devotees who was standing, who was actually wheeling out Swami, he made a comment saying that Swami, everybody is lost in the road, something of a negative sort. And Swami immediately cut him. Immediately, Swami did not even allow the comment to complete. Swami cut him and said, "No, no, no. It is, it is what they need. You have nothing to do about what they said. ఏమి మాట్లాడద్దు ఏమి చెప్పొద్దు అది వాళ్ళ ఇష్టం." And Swami was so happy, so satisfied. It's as if, Swami was, as if Swami expressed himself to his heart. And Swami looked at me, gave a beautiful smile. Swami said, "Go." I went and we traveled back. Now, when I look back at this incident, it just comes to me. Now, at that time I did not realize, but now I look back, and if you imagine what sort of patience would a person need, and this went on for 15, for those 15 minutes, I was dejected. No, I felt very dejected. One person came and explained all the problems of the fights that they had between two brothers. And once someone came and explained the diseases, someone came and explained about how his boss is ill-treating him. And I was thinking that those 15 minutes itself, made me so resentful of life. But imagine this continued for 50 or 60 long years, darshan after darshan, day after day, thousands of devotees, devotee after devotee. And yet, he would never ever appear dejected. He is ever contented, ever peaceful, ever loving, ever kind. What does it take someone to be like that? What does it take? What sort of material he must be made of internally? Now, you must. We should be very observant that he would never ever comment about someone. He would never ever speak ill of someone. He would never ever speak untruth. What does it take someone to live like that? No, I tried to be like that for one day, and I struggled within 5 minutes. 5 minutes is, it appeared too long a time not to have any negative thought, not to speak ill of someone, not to speak untruth, and be ever conscious of what is happening around you, be ever mindful, and be loving. That made him God in a very superficial sense.
You are mentioning, I'm also recalling that in all his actions, I don't know how he would always keep others as the prime attention, his devotees, as he says. Like, even I recall not wearing slippers for going to meet somebody or darshan, not because he could not wear it. It was not in the mandir premises, when he used to come to the stadium and all that. So we would run behind him sometimes with slippers, and most of the time he'll just stop you. And there is a very funny, when you're talking to me, I'm just recalling that, his concern was never for himself, it was the others.
In fact,
And
I remember, sorry, just to add to that incident, I remember one beautiful incident which Ravi Kumar sir used to narrate. He told us in hostel, he told us many times. In fact, Swami made him tell in Trai, and Swami enjoyed him narrating that experience, where one set of devotees who were, who came from very humble beginnings. They just came into ashram, and it was time was up for darshan. They are not aware as to when darshan timing would be, but the bus owner is forcing them to go back. He's not allowing them to stay in the ashram. And those days, as you said, boys had the opportunity to play slipper, to offer slippers to Swami whenever he would come out. And it was hot sun, and these people are very poor in their economic status, so they did not have proper clothes. None of them had slippers, and yet they were standing there, and they're wondering what to do. And that is when the gate started opening, and Swami was coming out, and our brother happened to be there. He wanted to make sure that Swami does not have any discomfort. So he takes those slippers, he runs and places them in front of Swami, and Swami was upset with his action. He did not understand why Swami got angry. Swami doesn't wear those slippers, but Swami walks up to them. Swami blesses those devotees. Swami poses for a photograph with them, and they are very happy. Swami is also very happy. Those devotees leave, but now this thought is running in his head as to why Swami was upset about his concern of placing slippers for Swami. As Swami returns, Swami comes to him lovingly, explaining, saying that, "See, look at them, look at those people. None of them have slippers. What example would I be setting if I wear those slippers and go to them? What would they be thinking? And then Swami walks up. And Swami also, it's that sukshma buddhi when you stay with Avatar. I think it's paramount that we should
Let me give you
understand.
another story. Maybe it will trigger your memories some more. Jagdish, it used to be during the Narayan Seva time. It started, and I'm sure you all have gone through that, when once in a year, when it was announced, all the villagers would come and Bhagwan would take care of everybody. So there was a huge Narayan Seva in the stadium. And Swami used to himself start the Narayan Seva. So if people don't know, he would be the first person with a spoon in hand. He would serve at least 10, 15 he will serve, and then rest will start. The Narayan Seva would start. So once I had a fortune of walking behind Bhagwan with the bucket. He would serve that pongal rice and curd rice. I was carrying one of the buckets and I was walking behind him, and as if somebody was trying to teach me that what he's doing. And I noticed what he did was he picked up I'm just sharing with the sequence of event. He scooped it and put it in the pattal and tapped the pattal with his spoon. He tapped it, and then he asked that person, "Do you want more?" He's talking in Telugu. Sorry, I don't recall the exact words, but he said, "Do you want more?" The poor fellow was already in that awe, looking at Swami. So he was like, he had nothing to say, but I could see that, the awe in his face. But Swami did his required duty of asking, "Do you want more?" And he was like dazed. And Swami said, "If you need, ask again." And he went to the second one, did the same thing. He tapped the spoon and asked the same question. And he kept on doing that. And I was walking behind and enjoying that sequence that Swami is doing to everybody. But it didn't hit me. And then suddenly looked at me, as how he does that in the middle of the event. He suddenly looked at me and said, "Chusava?" And I was like, okay, so there is something I have to learn. And then later on, we were in the room with Bhagwan Mandir. And Bhagwan used to come back, and he would always give us, like he would say, "My boys have done great seva and they're tired." And he would come out and start throwing apples to everybody. And I'm sure if you would have seen those years, he'd be throwing and we'll be like doing all dives and catching the apples. And then Swami stopped there and he said, "I can throw, but you should not throw." So we were like, okay. No, because he said we accept, but he explained it. He said, "When I throw, I know the relationship. You know me, I know you. But those devotees, those poor people, they have been neglected and, discarded by the society. So if you throw, or if I throw at them, they would think that even God is throwing at us. He doesn't want to come. That is why you noticed I tapped their pattal." See, we would think that it has become dirty. It has become, impure if you touch that plate. But here he was touching it consciously to give them the feeling that they belong. And when you think about all that, even in that small act of serving, what an involvement and what a message. I hope I have triggered some thoughts at you.
Absolutely, brother. Means these are certain memories. Means each and every act that he undertook, it was something so phenomenal. Means he had a message with every small thing, and most of the time, if you see the whole journey, right in the beginning, I was told that Swami taught the first devotees how to perform arati for him. So basically, Swami held the arati plate in his hand, and he was waving camphor to his own photograph, and he taught them how to perform arati. Once it began from there, he literally had to walk us by holding our fingers or by hand, and finally, towards the end, he had created an atmosphere or sort of an infrastructure, a spiritual infrastructure, if I may say so, where a lot of these things where we got it through osmosis, like by being in that system, Swami expects you to be like this, Swami expects you to be like this, and those were the things. But he put in a lot of effort. A small example, Ranganath was there in the interview room when we were going to Chennai. There's a beautiful episode. Swami wanted us to have new clothes. So he started asking, how much does your safari cost? So see, we could dare to stitch a safari only if he gave us. Left to ourselves, we would never have bought safari on our own. We would only buy per shirts and pants. But since he used to give us safari, we used to get it stitched. Now, the moment Swami asks you the question, how much does your safari cost? Nobody wants to answer that question because we really do. All of us do not get it stitched at the same place. And what if I tell a number which is too high? And everyone was taking a step back. So whosoever was not taking a step back was the first guy. So it just like Swami asked, okay, how much does it cost? And like I was shuddering and I said, Swami, 350. I think this is what the number I faintly remember, 350. 350. My heart skipped a beat. The moment Swami said, I said, gone. 350 is too much. There must be some guy in Parthi who might be stitching it for 100 rupees. But that was the thought that was uppermost in my mind. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Then Swami asked the elders, other elders, and thankfully their numbers were all higher. They said, Swami, somebody 500, somebody said 700. I thought I'm safe. So all of that happened. But basically, he was in a mood to give. He wanted to give us. So then he took out the a bundle of notes, and I still remember that scene was very beautiful. He's tapping that bundle in his hands, and he's singing a phrase. It's not a song. I've never heard anything. And what he was singing was, what do I do? What do I do? It's God is singing. What do I do next? Swami is singing. Yes, what do I do? Is he singing? And then he takes that and he says, okay, see, 350 is too less. That's not 500 for stitching and another 500 to keep in case it falls short. So basically he wanted to give 1,000 rupees each. So what he did was he put 1,000 rupees in every one of our pockets with his own hands. Now the lesson is here. When we were about to get up and we wanted to take Padma Namaskar and get up, as we were getting up, he held us and then he pushed the notes inside. He said, see, it is not that I love you anymore. I love those people sitting outside any less. This is your prapti that you are getting it here, but that should not become a show. So others should not feel anything. So press it inside. It should not appear that you got money and I gave you money and things like that. He pushed it inside with his own fingers. And then he told us to go out. What a message. Such a seemingly insignificant act of just pushing a few notes. But what thought means that statement that I love them no less. When in 2007 in Kodaikanal, I remember the devotees downstairs didn't know. That was the only day Swami came upstairs onto the room. And he sat near the window and he removed the curtain and he was looking down. Nobody knew. It was jam-packed downstairs in Sai Shruti. Everyone was waiting and looking at the door. And here is Swami peeping them from another direction down. And he was telling, do you know those devotees? Do you know that devotee? How much devotion he has. He built this particular temple near his house. That devotee, whenever he comes to Parthi, if he sees my car, he runs with flowers in his hands behind my car. He was literally stringing the life of every devotee. And then we didn't want Swami to go. We just wanted Swami to be there. And then Swami said, okay, now my duty time. I have to go. Darshan was his duty time, my duty time. You all can try and shrug off your duties. I cannot. I need to go. Get up. And he chased us all to the Bhajan hall. And then he came out. What is that? That's seemingly such small deeds. But what a message that he was giving to each one of us. And it's fantastic. Sometimes, you can just contemplate on these episodes.
Like you were saying, he never missed a darshan, even till the very end, right? I remember this one, once Swami came out and I think he was having a swelling in the jaw. Right? Usually he is like perfect. You don't see that. So anything out of place, you can immediately identify. He could have taken leave. He could have just stayed back, and the darshan would have been cancelled.
Leave.
Yeah, no one would have. We would have been upset, but that's not for us to decide. But he was there, and so and the next day the swelling had increased slightly, and so as students we started praying, Swami, please take care of yourself, please cure yourself, you're curing the problems of everyone. Why don't you just put some vibhuti there or do something and take care of yourself, right? It's so easy for you. Why do you have to put yourself through this and put us also through this, right? No, like, as much as he wants to take care of his body, he's not going to heal it like that. He said, no, that is not for me to decide. You go to hostel, do your prayers, do bhajans, and the swelling will reduce on its own. That was, I think, the message. Like we were discussing earlier, it's detached attachment. Attached detachment. You are attached to the body only to take care of it, and only to make sure it's in the perfect condition, but you're totally detached to whatever happens to it, whatever happens through it as well. So that, I think, watching Swami lead his life, that's one very important lesson we tend to forget. We associate the divinity around him. Yes, he's able to do all of this because he's divine, right? But we forget the sweat, the literal sweat that Swami, physical sweat Swami had to put in from the beginning, from the 40s, all the way till the very end of the physical body. How much effort he put in physically to carry on and to spread his message, to spread love. That's a very important lesson. So we cannot stop doing action thinking, yeah, I will just think about God. I don't have to put in any effort. I think we have to put in that effort. Nishkama karma comes later. First is planning for good action, doing good action, putting effort. And Swami sets an example on how we can put in that effort. That's
In
a
fact,
very
one of the senior devotee from Hyderabad, he was once sharing an experience where he had gone with Swami to the market, and Swami was uh, planning to buy those chairs for the upcoming university. And Swami at one point was bargaining so hard for 25 paise. And, and the devotee said, Swami, if you permit, no, we can buy this entire estate itself. Why are you bargaining for that 25 paise? He says, no. It is it is 25 paise is not about that paise 25, but it is about wasting money. It cannot be. It is devotees' money. Money should never be wasted. When he told me, I was so struck. What does it take someone to be like that? I mean,
yeah.
he was ever conscious of everything that was going around him. Look at in one of those sessions where one of the boys had he has finished his lunch, and Swami is going around, and Swami comes up to him and Swami points out to that uh, plate, and there were 8 or 9 grains of rice left. Apart from that, the plate was almost clean. And Swami points out to each one, saying, one Brahma, to each rice grain that was left there. One Brahma, two Brahma, three Brahma, four Brahma. And,
So you wasted
and
4 Brahma today.
9 Brahma, and in fact, Swami says you have wasted 9 Brahmas. This, even a rice grain is so important. I remember during Krishnarayavaram drama when Swami had come to, he was inside to bless us before we went on to the stage, and so we prayed that Swami should watch uh, the Vishwarupam scene, and Jagdish was Krishna, and Hemanth was Shakun. It was such a beautiful drama, such a great offering that we were putting up, and the entire Vishwarupam, which was conceptualized innovatively, came up. I remember the first comment that Swami made, looking at the entire Vishwarupam, it was looking beautiful, grand, was about there's a small folding in the dhoti of Krishna. He said that folding right, and then Swami went on to talk about his color and other things. But when I think back, no, this God was so particular of every detail. In fact, one of the Burakatha brothers would mention that when the Burakatha team was about to go to the interview room after their attire is done, Swami is quite upset. Swami called them and he said, Swami, because Swami is quite upset. Till then, Swami is very happy with this, with them, and they go near. Swami says, see, who did this makeup to you? And who put these costumes? They said, Swami, we have been doing this for so many times. Swami said, no, no, this is not the way. See, it is not done properly. They were thinking probably they said there's some wear and tear because of that. Their cloth must have torn away or whatever. And then Swami asked him to turn back. And then behind that mala, there is that pin, the safety pin. The head of the safety pin is actually seen. And
Oh
Swami
my
says
God.
that is not good. And another time, Brother Vinay Kumar, he talks about an incident where the Atirudra Mahayagyam, the the kun, the Yajnagundams were decorated, or they are all decorated. Swami came out. Swami looked at the Yajnagundam. Swami looks at Vinay Kumar, Brother Vinay Kumar, and points out like that to that Yajnagundam direction. So Vinay Kumar looks, and everything looks perfect. It's very good. First time, and so he just turns to Swami and says, Swami, everything is arranged. Swami continues to point second time. Now he goes up, he goes a bit near and he observes everything is fine. He comes back and says, Swami, he just nods, saying that Swami, I'm not able to find anything. Swami again points. And this time he wanted to be very particular. He goes near the Yajnagundam. Then that is when he finds out that there is a garland of flowers that were tied around the Yajnagundam, and two flowers were away, and the thread of the garland is seen. Swami wanted that thread not to be seen for the yajna. Swami was so particular. Nobody would have even taken a notice of that thread, but yet Swami was so particular. I think it is from these small and apparently minor instances that he showed us what it is to live like God. No, in one of the discourses, Swami says, no avatar apart from Krishna, no avatar has ever declared himself to be God, which is very beautiful way of saying I have never said it that I am God directly on a platform, but yet 33,000 temples across India, and have we seen anyone being in a human form taking arati? No. Yet, how did this happen? It is because of sheer personality. I don't think he has done great magic, apparently, to invoke so many devotees, but yet it is out of sheer will and sheer love that his personality spread that perfume of divinity.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'll just add one
Yeah.
beautiful thing, a small thing. Conservation. We're talking about conserving money, conserving resources, conserving food, conservation of words. And what this was an episode shared by Professor KBR Prasad. He was the professor in the physics department who taught us electronics. An amazing person. Yeah, no words. He was an
Manage the
aeronautics
sound
professor. Yes, he was managed the sound system. So he was a professor in IISc, and he came down to manage all the sound system. And one fine day, long ago, when Swami used to stay in the old mandir upstairs, he was doing the mic testing. So typically, how would we do mic testing if we are doing it for Swami's work? He connected it into the Bhajan hall speaker system, and he tapped Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. He said, and Swami came down and said, "Did you call me?"
Oh
And
my
like, you
God.
just imagine, you're tapping the mic and this thing, Sai Ram, and Swami says, "Did you call me?" And he said, "Swami, I was just testing." And then Swami said something very beautiful. Never take that name in vain. You have to take
Oh.
it with conscious effort.
Oh
And
my.
Swami said, if you're testing the mic, don't simply say Sai Ram, Rama, Krishna. No, not like that. Testing 1, 2, 3. Those were literal instructions. Swami said, how would you test? You take a mic and say testing 1, 2, 3. Else I will think that you're calling me. so and this is like how he taught all of these things, right? Conservation
Oh
of
my God.
every possible way. So something I wanted to share here. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's phenomenal. Oh my God.
In fact, just to add,
Before,
brother,
yeah.
just to
Sure,
add,
sure, sure.
conservation brings me just one of the memories. One of my classmates, Shravan, Pumma, we used to call him. He had once written a letter to Swami in Vrindavan, and Swami took the letter from his hand, and Swami opened it, and Swami was, that letter was just the top portion of the page was torn, and you have those dotted lines in the page. So the first header, that is where he wrote this message, whatever message he wanted to convey to Swami. That he wrote, and he gave that chit to Swami. So Swami opened that chit, and Swami was quite upset with him. Swami kind of showed that empty white space and says, "Why did you waste this?" It was, it was in fact a small piece of, and yet Swami was so particular that even in that piece, why the space was wasted. And I hear from brothers from the archive department where they have now they're seeing the books that Swami had, those notebooks that Swami would write, and many of the notebooks, would start from the top left corner of the page, right there, and it would go down to the top right, to the downmost corner. Not even a bit of space is wasted, and that goes on page after page. What is it for God? I mean, what is it for someone like Swami? He could have bought an entire book company, but yet here he is ensuring
Oh,
that it will have.
he used to tear the the blank portion of the letter. If devotees write a letter on a half page or three-quarter page, the last portion, if it is empty, sometimes he would tear that and give you for keeping vibhuti. When he creates vibhuti, first he'll create vibhuti, then he'll tear the paper and give it to you. And sometimes he'll
Wow.
fold you. In those days, he will also fold you,
Fold it.
fold and give it to you. So it used to be very crazy to watch him. That Swami, what are you doing? A small piece left, he would even use that. So he would never waste anything. Okay, before I jump into another question, I have two thoughts here from our viewers. Whether Saurabh is asking, especially for Jagdish and Raju, that when you talk in front of Bhagwan for that Atirudra Mahayajna, were those themes pre-decided, or was it Bhagwan giving you? So how the topic comes up? So that's the point they want to know is that how do you decide on the topics and who validates it? Correct.
So
So
one
please.
one thing, one note of caution, as far as I'll take this. Sorry, Ranganath, I didn't allow you to
Yeah, yeah,
speak. I'm
no,
just
go
jumping
on.
ahead. One note of caution: what we learned being with Bhagwan is he is the master of the universe. He is the Lord of our lives, no doubt about it. But when he asks you to give a talk, you better not say, Swami, your will, whatever you will come out of my mouth. You'll never get a chance to speak in front of him again. So you have to prepare as a human being. He expects you to tell everything properly, what you have prepared. You have to do your effort. You have to prepare. And he might even go to the extent, at least in Chennai, that was the case. He asked each one of us before we spoke the next day, what are you going to talk? And he, being the Lord of your heart and mind, yet he would give you the democratic right of expressing yourself and telling that this is what I have prepared, Swami, and this is what it is. And the interesting part was, me and Ranganath were both in the interview room, and Swami asked me, what are you going to speak? So it was like, literally, I was woken up from sleep. We practiced for the Krishna Raivanam, and I was just too tired after a night's practice. I was just taking rest after taking permission from warden. Somebody wakes me in the middle of the sleep, and the thing that he tells me is, Swami is waiting for you in the interview room. Just imagine, you wake up, somebody wakes you up like that. And I get ready and I run and I go to the interview room. Ranganath was already there, I think, or just about to enter. We enter, and then the first question Swami asks is, what are you going to speak? I had no idea of the context. And I said, what came to my mind was a line from Hanuman Chalisa, Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja. I just blurted it out in front of Swami. Swami said, Guru Gurinchi మాట్లాడతావు, చాలా మంచిది, కానీ హిందీలో మాట్లాడు, చెప్పుతో కొడతారు. He said, don't speak in Hindi, he'll throw slippers on your face. I said, I didn't understand even then the context. He said, because we are going to Tamil Nadu, they won't understand Hindi. So if you speak, there is no point. You have to speak in English. I said, yes, Swami. Guru is a good topic. So he basically expected us to be thoroughly prepared whenever we went for any talk like that. Raju, over to you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree with what you say, that he expected, in fact, one of the speeches, but yet, he's the proud mother that you would see. I remember after the speech that Hemanth gave, he started with in the divine presence. He started with, these are the best of times and the worst of times. He quoted the famous novel, and Swami was so happy. He went around saying, oh, this is my Hindupur boy. He had, like, he spoke some 8 or 9 times, and he kept repeating. He kept telling everyone that this is my Hindupur boy. How beautifully he spoke. And Swami was, in fact, Anil Kumar sir would even to this day recollect how Swami went to him and spoke about the bass voice that this boy had. He said, see, this boy, when he joined, he wasn't so authoritative in his voice, but now he speaks with so much of చాలా గర్దంగా గట్టిగా మాట్లాడతాడు. Swami is
Gattiga
holding like
Marle.
this. And so my point is that even though you might appear to be different of someone like me, no, I remember first time when I went, I wanted to speak. In fact, Warden asked me to go to Swami, and I went, and I said, even before I could open my mouth, Swami looks at me and says, this was outside the third door where current the Sannidhi is. Swami says, నీతో మాట్లాడతాను, నీ ద్వారా మాట్లాడతాను, నీలో మాట్లాడతాను. Says, I will speak to you, I will speak in you, I will speak through you. It put so much of ease into my mind that I had nothing else to say. That Swami, I just nodded. I wanted to pray that Swami, please bless me to speak. And then the speeches followed. Is that you have that complete surrender, and yet you prepare yourself. You be ready for any call that might come. He would be the strict disciplinarian. He would be the easing God. He would be the proud mother. Any of your
Well,
aspect you.
Swami, I'm sure you must have experienced. He's also a very beautiful consensus builder, if I may say so. Suppose you say
Yes.
something and he wants to change that, and he will not say it upfront and tell you, hey, you're wrong. Never he will say that. He will put another question to you that you will start thinking about it and then say, I'm thinking you also think. That's an indicator how he develops that consensus, and then both of us have to come together to kind of agree. I don't know if you've experienced that. He would always take you through that journey in which you start believing in the topic that you are supposed to be talking on. And then when you do that, obviously, he takes care.
There is one episode. In fact, I will quote that because Hemanth, Raju are both equally involved in that topic. When you said a consensus builder, it's very interesting. We just came fresh from vacations. Just imagine we're walking in with our luggage, and Warden is standing and he's telling Swami wants a program this evening. Means we have just not even gotten out of our, attire in some sense to get into the whites, and Swami wanted a program. So what do? So we all got together and we prepared a program on dharma. So it was basically a sledgehammer on the devotees. So you basically going four of us. I think me, Hemant, and two other brothers. I think four of us were prepared on Atma Dharma, Paradharma, Apadharma, and basically all the nuances of dharma. Two of us will get up, speak. Then two will sit, the other two will get up and speak. Slowly, what happens is when you are constantly looking at devotees, you can start sensing the agony on their faces, or rather the agony in their hearts. And the topic is not something which is putting them at ease or making them laugh. It's a serious topic. We knew what our fate would be at the end of that presentation. People are not going to smile at us, definitely, for sure. And we were like, Swami, we just landed from the train. 2 hours back, we were still in the train. We just got down and we had nothing to prepare. And then Swami created a vibhuti, called all four of us, gave, and looked at Professor G. Venkatraman, who was sitting. What a program on dharma. Can anyone speak like that? What a phenomenon. Suddenly the mood changed. The entire consensus instantly changed. It got transformed, and people were all smiles. Fantastic, you have done spoken, and you all have done the way. There is one aspect of consensus that you talked about. There is another aspect that having asked you to perform, the reaction of that, what you are supposed to get as a recipient, as a performer, that also he took care of. And many a times he was basically fending for us. It's a predicament to be God and a chancellor of a university. He has to take care of so many untied ends.
Hemant, you are also a speaker. Any memories on that front?
No, I'm just remembering what JC triggered a memory. Like when Swami is happy, everyone is happy. It doesn't matter what the program is. Swami, you have to make Swami happy. And Swami gets happy seeing your effort, not the final outcome. And final outcome, it has to be good. It will be good. But Swami is more interested in the effort and the sadhana that goes into making that. And he's always going to reward that. And once Swami is happy, everything is happy. I remember an incident which is opposite when Swami wasn't happy. So it was a drama we had. It was for, I think, the maths department had put a
Math.
conference, uh, and it was a drama for that, and we had put in lots of effort, and we came up with this plan, with this idea. So in the scene, we were discussing the health, the health infrastructure, insurance in the Western countries. So how they need to spend a lot of money, and uh, so we were, as we are depicting that, we use the word um, American dollar, and we were, in a way, we were criticizing how the health system is there in these countries. That was it. He just got up and he just walked out. He called for the car. The drama is going on in the Kulwant Hall. Everyone is watching it. And so in the scene, there are people, like in the scene, there's one person who goes and he doesn't have enough money to pay his hospital bills. He has to argue with the insurance and all that stuff. And we're talking about the American dollar. We're trying to depict there. Swami got up and he left, and he came back by the last scene. The drama is completely over and we're finishing. And then Swami says, if they didn't have money, they could have come and asked me. Swami, that is a drama. But he's not interested in it. I said, no, you cannot. There are so many devotees out there who are from those countries. And here you're criticizing their way of life, you're criticizing their country. That is not right. I cannot accept that. So that's very important. You have to be so careful what you project, and that was what Swami was. You cannot just simply, just because you have the mic and the audience, we had to be very careful. So I think when Jagdish was saying how we just talked about what Swami had taught us, dharma, that was enough for him. We are just repeating what he had taught us. But if you try to be smart and just try to show that you and criticize someone else, he's not going to be happy, because you're going to hurt someone. So I think that was a very important lesson that day for us.
And brother, just to add another beautiful point to the points that I mentioned. Now, many of us tend to feel that we have an obligation to spread the message of the Lord through. At least I used to have that feel that I am the that I have to spread this message, etc., etc. Uh, um, Once Swami had, after a speech, one of the brothers goes to Swami and then he offers uh, uh, whatever he wanted to, a letter that he had, and he was about to take Path Namaskar. And then Swami asks him, what did the speech do to you? He says, మాట్లాడడం వల్ల నీకేమైంది? His boy is speechless. He gets up and he takes Namaskar again. Swami continues to ask, మాట్లాడడం వల్ల నీలో ఏం మార్పు వచ్చింది? What is the change that this speech has brought in you? I think the Lord does not need us to spread his message, or the Lord, I was once coming from Bangalore airport, and I had told one of the uh, one of very senior Sai devotees that I'm going to write a book on Swami's life, and I would be spreading his glory. It's the exact word I used in Telugu. And I got into the car, and the car driver, he was not part of this discussion. So we were driving and we stopped near one of the hotels, and on the blade of when he got down on the blade of grass, there is a small insect, colorful insect. So he opened the door and he's about to put his foot outside. He looks at that blade of grass and that insect and says, that insect, it's like multicolored insect, small insect you would find. And at that particular point, it had that color of Swami's, that orange robe color. And he says, he looks at that insect and says, sir, look at the greatness of Bhagavantan యొక్క సృష్టిడు, and look at God's wonderful creation, greatness of his creation. Sir, you don't need to go to temples, you don't need to go to those spiritual people, gurus, to know how great God is. Look at this small insects, sir. Look at these plants, sir. They speak millions of God's capability. And it hit me like a thunderbolt. If the Lord wants to spread his message, he can do through those leaves, to those insects, through those stones. And what are we? I think all these, I think many of the because many of the brothers and sisters who are viewing this program, it is important for each one of us to have this perspective. We are not coming here to talk about Swami, even in this program. We are not here to talk about Swami and because it's going to make a difference to the world. No, no, that is secondary. That is incidental if it happens. But it is more our personal sadhana. It is a sadhana for each one of us. It is an opportunity for us to live through those moments. One of the boys had asked Swami that, Swami, you gave me education. You also gave me a lot of encouragement to participate in dramas and speeches, and you also at times you also uh, forced me to meditate or have those spiritual practices. So Swami goes on to explain. Swami says this education is for your earning. In our program probably we can translate it as bhakti, and all this dramatics, these speeches that you were, this is for your sadhana, this is for your bhakti, to increase that love for God. And Swami goes on to explain, when this meditation or these spiritual practices that Swami is pushing him, he says he tells him that the form that you're seeing now may not be around all the time. You may not, even if it is around, it may not be accessible to you all the time. You should know how to access it, and this is the medium through which you will develop this access. And Swami blesses him. I think it is about us, when the Lord wants us to speak. I remember one of the Vidyavahini dramas. I never understood this till I saw it. One of the Vidyavahini dramas we wanted to. It was on the 85th birthday, sorry, 90th birthday. This drama was being prepared, and we wanted to get boys from different schools. And we had gone to one school in Mathagiri, and we called out actors. So brothers were calling out, and one very diffident boy who would not, who would even hesitate to open his mouth, who would even hesitate to stand in front of his class. He was selected for a role of, and the brother Satyajit made sure that no, we will select him only. I never understood that time for whatever reason he had, but this boy ended up as Valmiki, as a Valmiki role. The drama gets over, and then again we go back to celebrate the drama. Now, boys are asked, as usual, after speeches, boys are asked, does anybody want to speak? Does anyone have any opinion or any feedback? Anybody wants to speak, share any memories? And one hand goes up. I was shocked. This was the boy, who acted as Valmiki. He was diffident even to stand. This boy comes up, addresses his entire 330 schoolmates, talks about how wonderful was drama, talks about what change that it brought into his personality, and he sits down in broken English and Tamil. I was stuck. Now that this to
Raju,
this
you are
medium.
reminding me, when we talk about, the talks, sometimes as a speaker, we take the liberty of using certain words or certain statements to get claps, or sometimes in a stupid way to get attention of Swami. And we tend to say things like, Swami, I'll give my life for you, and blah blah. We use so many statements, and Swami used to, in our time, I remember, he used to laugh, and he said, he'll hold his hair like that,
Yeah.
and so many boys have said that. Where are they? So he would always tease you. At that time, it was like a youthfulness, so we never understood it. But it was a very beautiful thing that Swami never took even a statement casually. For him, everything mattered. If you say something to Swami that I want to dedicate my life, you better mean it. So, I used to
Yes.
get scared of using that statement because I said, my God, he is so serious. Now, I don't know if I can stand up for any word. But do you have any such memories with Bhagwan?
One memory that comes to my mind, brother, is about, I wanted to talk about Radha, and I think we had earlier mentioned it. Wanted to talk about sacrifice and other things. What about Radha? And the speech would end something like, Radha might have prayed so that ek hrudayam nosikita vishanaku, that she gave the heart that you have offered to her. But here we are, your students. We want to pray that we don't even want this separation. That Radha at least had the separation from you. We don't even want that separation. And I remember even before I could venture into that, Swami asked me to stop. Swami made a signal announcement because it was so particular. Later, I realized, and then Swami explained in his own beautiful way, that the greatness of Radha is something that is beyond our understanding. And he went on to indicate that do not speak about things that you don't understand. This sounds very emotional that Radha had a identity that is separate from me, but we don't even want an identity. But I remember this similar thing. A primary school boy, third class boy, fourth class boy, he said once this to Swami, and Swami was so happy that Swami brought him up to our. I think we were in 12th or first UG. That and Swami made him say this to all of us. When I contrast these two, probably it is that intention. If you do not have that intention of what you mean, I think the Lord would not accept it.
See, either you have to be innocent like a child,
Yeah.
or you be a realized soul to speak that. In middle, you are not allowed to say.
You are not allowed.
I
A few
remember
funny.
I think one of you had this experience also when somebody said that, Swami, I want to surrender and all that. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
immediately after speech, something else happened and Swami pointed out. Jagdish, you recall? I don't know. Just
Yeah. The two episodes I wanted to share. One is the surrender episode. One is we heard it from our professor Sanjay Sani sir. Swami expected every student, if he was a public speaker, he should be thoroughly prepared and should not carry chits, piece of paper.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a very, very funny episode that a student came down to take Swami's namaskar. Swami walked up to the podium and got his chit. He kept his chit there and came for namaskar. And by the time he came, Swami went and brought the chit. And this fellow is like shell shocked now. He doesn't have that reference with him. So that is an interesting episode. But coming to that surrender aspect,
The chit is
That-
actually cue cards, just for the
cue cards,
viewers to
yeah.
understand. The cue card points.
Exactly.
They write sometimes. Boys write the points for
Points.
reference.
so if anyone is mistaken that the whole speech is printed out in A4 sheets and like 5-6 bundle, no, it's not. It's just a piece of paper with a few points. And Swami didn't want anyone to carry that. Coming to that episode of surrender, that was an interesting episode because when we got a chance, Ranganath was there, and the part is that he expects you to live that spirituality. What Hemanth and Raju both very beautifully pointed out. He is not merely interested in a performance. He is not a showman. He is God. He expects you to internalize what you are trying to do, and what makes him happy is that internalization. And some people might have that doubt. If we internalize, does that guarantee a fantastic output? What if the show is a flop? But this is what we have experienced, at least our limited understanding is when you put in that hard work and you internalize, the chances of that going flop are minimal. Means he makes you work that hard that you end up putting a good show no matter what. But in the process, if you have internalized it, that makes him really happy. That Sharanagati episode was the previous day I asked Swami what surrender is, and he explained the whole thing about surrender using the explanation of a card and all of that. And my topic of that my talk next day was Guru. And I went and I thought I spoke brilliantly, and like everyone clapped, including Swami had actually made a very cryptic comment. I was talking about Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. And then I explained, like just as Guru is Brahma, he sows goodness, seeds of goodness, and then Vishnu, and he takes care of sustenance of that goodness, and Shiva destroys any evil traits that are trying to obstruct that goodness and things like that. Swami made a statement. He said, Kaniya Pujari Angikarincharu. Means those pujaris wouldn't agree. And then I was like, for a moment, I was thinking, why wouldn't the pujaris not agree to this, what I'm saying? And then I realized they were Shaivites. In Shaivism, you cannot tell them that, that very same Lord Shiva is also Vishnu, is also Brahma, is also sitting in a human form. They will go nuts. They cannot digest that. For them, Shiva is absolute authority. You cannot compare him. And if you compare him with somebody like Vishnu, it's like blasphemous for them. They don't talk to each other. The Shaivism and Vaishnavism don't go well together. And then I realized, Swami, I have walked the mile too far now. I cannot retract any steps. And then Swami said, no matladu nen chustanu. Means you speak, I will see. I don't know what those guys heard that day, but they clapped. They clapped really hard. And that was like a sort of indication that, okay, I did a good job. But when we came back, Swami was unhappy. Swami was unhappy. And he was extremely livid, extremely wild. Em baga matladedu, em baga matladedu. He just kept telling you didn't speak well. And one of the reasons he chose to do this basically was the music program after my talk, that the PA system went wrong. Even the musicians didn't do anything wrong. The music system, the PA system had an issue, and Swami apparently chose this as an excuse to teach me my lesson. And it was a tirade. He was unending. You didn't speak well. You didn't speak well. And I was bedding my head down, sitting right under Swami. Whosoever spoke was given the opportunity to sit right next to Swami and that was proving to be my nemesis. That is the closest that you can get the the blessings from. Let me put it that way. And I was like getting it. Then Swami made a statement. He said, "Sharanagati gurinchi okka mukka kuda maatladaledu. You didn't speak a word about Sharanagati." That is where I said, okay, Swami, here is where you are wrong. We had this discussion, avidya and vidya. When you are ignorant, you are in a sort of darkness. But then you think that you are knowledgeable. Means the ignorance or rather the illusion of knowledge, you are into a greater darkness. You are all the more sunk then. And that is when I said, Swami, here you are wrong. Sorry, you are mixing things up. What I spoke was about Guru, and I spoke perfectly well. Even the pujaris clapped, so I'm not convinced that I didn't muff up anywhere. So now you are mixing up my doubt. That was my personal doubt about Sharanagati. And now you're mixing these two things up. So you're going wrong somewhere. And Swami was unrelenting. He was looking and making faces. Didn't speak well. And I was like telling that, no, Swami, you are wrong. You messed it up somewhere. You're mixing things up.
You were arguing with him?
No. I was in my mind. Sorry, I was not telling it aloud. I was telling Swami. No. I was thinking in my mind, Swami, you're mixing things up. Sorry, you are God, but you are wrong here. At this point in time, you are wrong. I'm sorry. At one point, there was pin drop silence. And then Swami says, hey. And then just look up at Swami and says, Yemirani Sharanagati. What is your surrender? What have you surrendered? Just yesterday, if I told you whatever happens is for your good, can't you believe that even now what is happening is for your good? And that moment, that thought sort of realization dawns, that foolishness sort of takes a back seat. I started almost choking, and then he said, hey, Bangaru, Tinra. The thing changed completely. Then he was like, he took extra care to make sure that I was comfortable and all of that. But he wanted that inner transformation. You asked about surrender. I told you about surrender. Did you internalize the concept of surrender? Can you tell yourself that whatever is happening is for your own good?
Oh my God.
And that was like a beautiful episode. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I have one more question from Sister Ishita here. She's talking about, okay, let me flash it. It's a very cute question, actually. Talking about incarnation, did anyone ask Swami anything about why he came alone and not with Sheshanag and Lakshmi and all that, like he did in Ram and Krishna avatar? I think it's a very cute question, but I don't know how you want to handle that question.
Hemanth, do you want to take it? Or one interaction that we had in a class group comes up to my mind. No, I had I had put a message in a class group which says, imagine the Bharat which was under the rule of Krishna, or which was under the rule of Rama. Imagine that Bharat. It goes on, some 4 or 5 lines. And out comes a reply from Hemanth. And now I end saying that, imagine what this Bharat would have been if that same Rama is around. And out comes a reply where he says, you are that Rama, you are that Krishna, but with different constraints. And it took some time for that message to sink in. I think when we look at these aspects of Sheshanag or other whatever that sister had asked about Lakshmi, Mata, Sheshanag, I think these are qualities or these are aspects that are referred in a cryptic manner about the personality. When it is not that Swami, if you down the line, probably 500, 600 years down the line, you would see, for example, I know of a Telugu poet who is quite close here. He talks about how this avatar is of Shiva and Shakti, and he gives a description where the earlier portion where it was all sands, all water, lot of vibhuti used to flow, it was all Shiva. And in the later portion where too many devotees, gold decked roof, festival after festival. Every day there is to be that something or the other happening in Patti. It's all that Shakti. So he says Shiva and Shakti are together. Now the poetic descriptions would flow like that. I'm sure 600 years or probably 1000 years later, when we come back, we would also hear Satya Sai having 64 gods around him, and all those Sheshanag being his holding his foot. And I think these are poetic descriptions to drive home a deep message. Unfortunately, we have left the message, but we have just caught on to that poetic description. Hemant or Jagdish, if you want to add on.
Yeah. I think, like, if you look at Swami's life and go through his message, Swami talks about devotion, Swami talks about faith, surrender, discipline, all of these things. But any discourse you take, he always addresses us as Divyatma Swarupullara, Prema Swarupullara. And the core of Swami's message is, I am God, I am God, I am God. This I think is a very, very significant thing which we should always hang on to. In fact, in the earlier in the 60s and 70s, Swami would talk for hours just on this concept of Aham Brahmasmi, the Tattvamasi, the Mahavakyas in the Upanishads, just trying to drive home this fact that each of us is God. That is the core principle. And if we put him on a mountain, and we will never reach there. He's always there at some high pedestal. He becomes Rama, he becomes Krishna, he becomes Jesus, Buddha. And we look up to that and say, oh, they were noble people, they were blessed, they came with powers. But we will never be like them. We will go about our lives in our own way, and we'll look up to them, we'll pray to them to solve our problems. We will never work to solving our own problems. We will never work to solving the problems of our fellow beings. We always think someone will come down from heavens to solve all those problems. No, I think each of us, we have to realize this is Swami's core message, this I am God. And if you look at the later half of Swami's discourses, he would, many times in the discourse, he would bring up the concept, Soham, say, Soham, Soham. It is a reminder for us inside our body. He has put in that. Swami has given to each of us that a reminder that says, you are God, you are God. It's constant all the time. And that's the only true reality. We can think about Rama, we can think about Krishna and assume, they were phenomenal, they were divine, they had all these powers. For that matter, even Swami, we can say Swami has lots of powers. He can say he is God, but how can I say I am God? I think we are sort of confusing with the divinity and the feeling that I am God. You don't have to be miraculous. You don't have to be able to materialize objects. You don't have to have the siddhis, like moving from place to place, flying in the air, walking on water. All those aren't the principles of God. The principle of Godhood, I think what Swami wants us to realize is all of us are divine, and that divinity within me is the same as divinity within you. And what is the outcome of this? What will happen if I realize I am God? Will I be able to be like Swami? Will people flock to me? Will all my problems be solved? Will I materialize gifts? Will I be able to become big, small, appear in places? No, none of this will happen. The only thing Swami says will happen, and this is the core of the Indian scriptures and Advaitic philosophy, which says only thing that will happen is you'll be free from grief, you'll be free from fear. Just these two principles, that's all. There's nothing else. Once we
Hemant,
are
this topic you have touched upon is a very beautiful topic, and I think we need to justify this topic properly. So I would request that since time is running off, so I would request that we'll continue this discussion for the next week, and we will discuss that topic in detail. And that way we can justify and we can give a little bit more time to it. But I think this sister, what she's asking, Raju touched upon it. And honestly, we don't have the answers why Avatar chooses to bring, paraphernalia around him. But one thing is for sure that depending on each age and time, he chooses the format in which he has to come. So Rama chose to have one wife and family to run the whole life. Krishna had a different format of life, and Sai had a different format of living. But they all are suiting to the time in which they are coming, and to identify now to say that Rukmani was Sita was Rukmani is like saying Kasturi Garu was Narada, or Kasturi Garu was Sheshanag. We can always, after, like Ranga said, that Raju, after 600 years somebody will say that Kasturi was this avatar, and you know Colonel Jogara was this avatar, because they descended on this earth and they did the job. So let us not get into that trap of how avatars and how gods descend and facilitate the process of transformation. But what is important is that avatar comes and gives you that exposure and makes us feel close to him. So any final words before we wind up for tonight?
And
And I request all of you to please, yeah.
I'll just
Yes, yes.
take a beautiful thing that Hemant started, and you said that we will discuss this. There are two very important words he used: grief and ignorance. That is the essence of Indian Vedanta. The soul is born and is lost because of grief and ignorance. And just to end that, most of the mantras that we chant, Hanuman Chalisa, Mrityunjay mantra, Gayatri mantra, what do they do? Just the Mahamrityunjay mantra. Urva Rukamiva Bandhana. What does Urva actually mean? People will be surprised. Urva actually also means a cucumber. Just as a ripe cucumber effortlessly drops off or detaches itself from the creeper, let me also get detachment from that fear and ignorance. And probably we can discuss and meditate on these concepts.
Yeah,
But
that's why I said this topic is so beautiful. I don't want to cut it short and just throw some sentences and then,
absolutely,
so we'll
absolutely,
come back. And so I
absolutely.
request all of you to please join me again next week, and we'll carry on with the same flow, because there is some more thoughts which I had to ask you, but I think we had so much to share and remember Bhagwan, so it was beautiful anyways. So any final words, Raju and Hemant, before we close
Brother,
for tonight?
in his book of Power versus Force, Dr. Hawkins, he talks about, you made a point a few seconds before that Avatar has descended. In his book, Dr. Hawkins, he has been blessed by a great spiritual experience which transformed his life. But one of the lines which says, he says, I when he was blessed that with that ability to experience bliss, that supreme bliss, whatever it is called as Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshutam Bandhatitam Trigunaraitam, that state, when he was blessed, he from that pedestal, he was able to observe the entire humanity. And many people are not allowed to express, they were not allowed to express their state, but it's God's love and grace that Hawkins was allowed to express himself. He would say that I see people, most of the people sleeping throughout their life. They are never awake. And one line he adds, he says, they think that God descends at one point in history, but they do not realize that every minute God is just all around them. And he says they themselves are gods. There is no difference between God and them. Unfortunately, all of us are asleep. All of them are asleep. And he goes on to explain what that state goes on. I think that is where the catch lies. That that we are that supreme entity lost in some illusion.
I think it was a, yeah, no, I'm it's a loss for words right now. It's a beautiful discussion. I mean, on this auspicious day, on Akanda Bhajan Day, just to get an opportunity to talk about Swami with all of you, that I'm just so thankful to Abhi brother and this platform
Same.
for making this happen.
Same
Thank
here.
you. Sainam.
Absolutely.
Sai Ram.
Absolutely.
Thank you all, viewers, for joining us. And I request you all, if you have any questions or any thoughts on this topic, what you are discussing, or any other flavor that you would like us to discuss, please feel free to write to us or email us or share us here, and we'll be happy to discuss or share whatever we can to our capacity and remember Bhagwan. So thank you very much, and Sai Ram. Wish you a happy Akhand Bhajan, as they say.